Hey guys, Dave here again. Got an exciting video. Today we're going to talk about custom connectors, API keys, the frustrations about having users have to put their own key in when they don't have their own key, and some approaches on how to solve and fix some of this. All right, so the first thing that I want to show you is the use case so that we can go ahead and look at this. So I'm going to go ahead and paste the application URL. And this is a demo user, and lo and behold, as soon as I go in here, I can't allow anything. I simply have to sign in. Now, as soon as I do that, I need to provide the key. Well, I'm a user. I don't have the key. So this is a problem. And this is where a lot of administrators and new administrators of the Power Platform, especially even enterprise administrators or folks in the enterprise that's just really new to the Power Platform, and even those that are seasoned, they run across this and are really not quite sure how to deal with it. The good news is there are probably more answers and solutions than you care to learn. And I'm going to show you a handful of them today. So sit back. Hopefully this will be a very educational video, and this will mean a lot to a lot of people to help them from, keep them from pulling their hair out essentially. So this is a bad user experience right here. That we can agree, right? Okay, so this I'm logged in, as you can see, as my demo user 1. I'm using Edge as the browser. I'm going to switch over to Chrome. I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to show you how to fix this problem. So this particular application that I have, if I come over here to apps, let me show it to you. This is this ChatGPT business writer. And so if it works the way that it's supposed to work, you get this design. It's a two-screen app that goes out to ChatGPT, generates some content or an email, comes back, blah, 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 and does what it's supposed to do. Okay? So this is using the chat or the OpenAI API, and in addition to that, I'm using Robin, I think it's Rosengrun, if I remember how to pronounce it, and he did a lot of this work on here. So he has this connector. Let me show you that so that you'll know what work this is all being based off of. So let me hit new connection, and here it is right here. OpenAI Independent Publisher Preview. This is Robin's work. And so if you want more information about Robin, you can go ahead and click on this, and here it is, published by Robin Rosengrun. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And in any event, you put your API bearer API key here, and off to the races you go. But you're going to run into the problem that I just showed you with the users then having to put in the key. And the other problem that usually happens is that I run into more often than not is people don't use solutions. Only a handful of people do. I really, really strongly suggest and wish and hope that people start using solutions, even if they're not in an application lifecycle management type of situation or environment. It's still always best practice to use them, and this is one of these use cases to where even if I'm not switching between environments, it just really makes this next part pretty or that much easier. So inside of the solution, let's see what we've got. And one of the benefits of using a solution is solution-aware objects. Connection references are one of those items. Okay, what is a connection reference? A connection reference, if we open it up and we take a closer look at it, first we have a name, but what we do is we point it to the connector. In this case, it's my custom connector, which I'm using based on Robin's work. And so I've gone ahead and created a custom connector out of that for the purposes of this video. And the reason I did this is because I ran into a bug using his connector where I had a snapshot of a solution and it was offline. And if you're doing true ALM and you're doing an export out of the development environment and then doing an import into, say, a staging or the production environment, and it's all being done in one continuous CI/CD type sweep that would be done in Azure DevOps. Again, I have other videos up here showing and illustrating that. But if you want to do that, then this problem goes away that I'm about to describe. But I didn't have it doing this in a way. I had set it up on a YouTube video, and I have it uploaded to my website. And so my solution is sitting there in a zip file, waiting for people to fill out the form, and then it'll download the zip file, and then they try to import it, and then something wonky happened where I think Robin might have created some code change. And as a result of that, the connector that Microsoft generates in the Power Platform, something changed in the GUID, and it said that it couldn't import the solution because the GUID no longer existed. So the way to get around that was to take that work and put it into a custom connector, which is why I started going down this road a while ago to solve for that particular problem. All right, so now with that being said, back to this connection reference. So again, you give it a name, I point it to the connector. It could very easily be his connector, but in this case, again, it's my custom connector. And then the connection is my connection that I created for me personally, David, right? So I'm the administrator of this environment, and so I want other people to use that, but I don't want them to put in the key. And so this is what the connection reference is. In my apps, in my flows, I'm using the connection reference, which is a pointer to my connection that already has the key in. Okay, so this is all set up. It's ready to go. There's no hocus pocus about this. Now, if I were to do this maybe outside of a solution, so for those of you that don't like solutions, that don't use them, or whatever the case may be, then you would have to come over here and do some additional hocus pocus, and that would be configuring this run only user. So here you would click at it, you would put in the names of the groups or the teams of the people that you want, and then what you would do is choose this drop down and use this connection and choose the OpenAI connection. Now, if you're not familiar between connection and connections, let me show you that in just a second. But anyway, this is an extra step that you'll have to configure outside of a solution. And it's much easier to configure the solution to use the connection reference as you see it is here. I'm using the connection reference that's using the OpenAI connector or connection. And so let me click back over to here. And let me come out of here for a minute. So here are my connections. These are all of the connections that I have personally created, right? And you do that from using these connectors. So that's really what gets people screwed up, is connections and connectors. So a connector is giving you the ability to connect to an API. A connection is using a connector and configuring it so that it does make the established connection. Okay, so hopefully that was clear. If not, and you guys are probably really spun around and lost, and don't worry, you can always use the rewind button and hopefully listen to this multiple times, or leave a comment in the comment box, and I'll do my best to explain it there in writing. So the next thing that I needed to show you here is, now that we've got this in a solution, I don't have to do that hocus pocus inside of the flows. What I do need to do, though, is I need to make this extra configuration. And this is the final piece. This is where everybody simply winds up pulling their hair out and screwing it up. And this is the fix. So I come into here. I come into share. Now I'm on the connection. This is my connection that I made. It's configured. It has my API key. It's good to go. But I just want to share it now. And once I click share, it should work, but it's not. So let me refresh the screen and try this again. So click here, click share. There we go. All right. Now I can share with everybody in my org, and everybody in my org can use, but maybe that's not good, right? Because now everybody's got access to this thing, and because it's an API key and the API key is charged to billing, maybe you don't want everybody and their grandmother using it. So maybe you only want a handful of people. So in that case, you can actually type in, actual people. So I'll use the demo user 1, and I can say, yes, you can use and can share or can edit. Well, I don't want to give somebody rights to edit my connection, so that's not good. But if you had co-authors, maybe you might want to do that. So can use is good enough in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now with this, all of that rambling, all of that explaining, this is all I had to do in order to fix the problem, because I'm using a solution. I just needed to make sure that this was done. And here's the Flow is actually telling you this already inside of here. So when I come into here and I go to share, as soon as I click on, the demo user, if you read this information right here, it says make sure users have access to the data used in your app, including the gateways, APIs, connectors, tables, and so on. And it's showing me I need access to these logic flows. And the logic flow itself is being called from inside of the app. So because of the way that's set up in a solution, and I'm using the connection references, that part kind of is already handled by that. But what's not handled was that last part that you just saw me do. I needed to share out to the demo user this connection that I have that already has the API key established. And so with that being said, everything's well and good, and I should be able to come over here and to my app. Let's hit details. Let's copy this out. Let's come back over here. Let's go into Edge. Let's go to a new tab, and now let's run this. And I'm still going to get prompted, but I'm going to get a slightly different prompt this time. And it says for me still to sign in, so it doesn't look like that quite took yet. So let me give it a few seconds here. Okay, guys, so I had to essentially, because I'm doing this so fast, it takes a little while for things to replicate and to clear and do whatever. I went ahead and cleared my browser's cache for Edge, and as soon as I cleared the browser's cache, none of that stuff was stuck in here, and now you can see that the window looks slightly different. I can switch the account, and at this point I can use the existing connection, or I can use a different connection, and then I can provide my own API key if I had an API key, but I don't. So all I have to do is just choose allow. This allows me to use the connector. That's all I'm saying. And then boom, off to the races I am. So that takes care of how to get things to work without using what I'm about to show you now, which is a trick to get all of this to work. So I want you to come over here to my GitHub, and I want you to go to github.com, go to DT Soden, and then go into the repo called YouTube Videos, and inside of there's a folder called OpenAI. Couple things. Download if you want a pretty graphic for your custom connector. That's here. So if you click download, it just opens it up in a new screen. Then you got to right click, save image as, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I'll let you do that. The connector that you saw that I previously had configured is this OpenAI YAML file. Okay, so this is the connector as it exists, again, based on Robin's work, except I've made a little bit of changes, so I've got my name up in here as well, but credit goes to Robin because he was the originator of all of that. And then I have my completely, very customized version of this called the OpenAI Global, and this is what I want to show you here. So this again is a YAML file. Swagger files can come, and this is what this is, Swagger. Swagger files can come in two varieties. One is a JSON file and the other one's YAML. This is using YAML. So when you get to the screen, click on Raw, because this will give you a URL that you can use when you're establishing or creating your custom connector, which is what we're going to do right now. So come over here to custom connectors, and I only have the one. That's the other one that I've been showing you all along. Now we're going to create a new one. And I'm going to do from import OpenAPI from URL. Okay, so I'm going to call this one OpenAI-global, and then we're going to paste this in here. I'm going to choose import. All that does is validate that it is a Swagger file that can be used. If it's not going to work, if there's going to be a problem, it'll error out automatically. But no errors, so we can click continue. Now this takes us into essentially doing the work. So now I can upload that pretty graphic so that I have a nice, pretty custom connector look, right? So this is all well and good. Everything is normal, just like you've ever seen in a custom connector, except for security. In Robin's, he has the security set up, and he has it set up for it's an API key. Again, I don't want users providing API keys. I don't want to have to share out the connector like I did before earlier. But I do want to just use the connection reference to go in there so that they don't have to do and put in the key. I just have to give them access to what needs to be done. All right, so with that being said, then we come over here to the definitions, and this is where the magic occurs. Okay, the only thing you have to worry about is this access token. Okay, this is a header, and if we jump over very quickly into the documentation for OpenAI and we look at authentication, you have to use this authorization bearer your API underscore key. And the problem when you're dealing with these custom connectors is it has to be authorization. But if I put authorization here in the headers, and by the way, this gets done by clicking import sample, and when I constructed it, I had to put it here. But if I try to use the keyword authorization, it's going to give me an error. It's going to say you can't do that here. You need to set it in step 2 under security, which is where I said Robin was doing his work over there, but I'm not doing it here. I need to do it here. So I'm giving it a temporary name. I'm calling it access token. And so inside of the access token, if you edit it, notice a couple of things. All of this stuff at the top is, just for your information. The key here is you need to swap this out with your bearer, and your API key goes here, and it's hidden. Nobody else is going to see it. And the reason it's hidden is because, number one, don't change this from required yes to no, because it absolutely is required, or you're going to break the connection. And the other thing is, the reason that it's hidden is because I have it set to internal. Internal means it's just used internally amongst itself inside of this backend configuration. And it's a string. Okay, so again, you come in here, you put your key here, you're good to go. Now, the one thing that doesn't come over in the Swagger file, unfortunately, are policies. So you're going to have to manually configure this, so watch carefully. It's not difficult. So click new, and we'll just call this, what is the main key here? What are they called? I always forget. Authorization. So let's name this access to, so that's what we're doing. What we're going to do is we're going to, on the fly, for each request, we're going to rename the header access token, and we're going to rename it to authorization. And we do that by setting the header, because that's what it is. It's a header, right? My access token is a header. And so I want to do it for the completion. It's the only action that I have configured here. But if I had multiple actions needing an API key or needing to use this API key, see, when you use this step 2 security, it does this automatically for you. But because you're doing it in this trickery kind of way, this is how you get around it. So to do that, like I said, you pick the actions that it corresponds to, and then the header name that you need to use, this is basically what you want to rename it to. We're renaming it from access token to authorization. And the header value that we're going to use, in other words, the value that we're going to use for authorization, is going to be the access token. So we have to do at did this wrong. At headers, and then this goes inside of parentheses, and inside of here we have to use single quotes. All right, so that's the correct syntax. At headers, and then access dash token. We want to override, and we want to do it on a request. So for every request that goes out, we want to override, and we want to make this an authorization, and we want to replace access token with authorization, and we want the value, which is bearer, your API key, to be the value for this header. Okay, so this policy then now fixes this so that all of this can be done on the fly. It can be configured for your actions. It can be hidden, and we don't have to set this in security. So with that being said, we can just click on through to code preview. Now I'm going to have to gray out some stuff here, so I need to go back into my definition here, and I need to go into access token because I need to actually put my key in. So there's my key. Don't worry about it. I'm going to have this grayed out so you won't be able to see it. All right, that being said, we're all good to go. I'm going to come over here to test, and I'm going to hit create connector. And my key will show up on this screen as well. I'll have to blur this out. But as soon as this is done, I'll go ahead and I'll create the connector. And any day now. Really took a long time. All right, so now the connector has been created. Now I need to create a connection from my connector. And to do that, I just hit new connector and hit create. And the key's already there, so I don't have to provide it, right? So nice and easy. So here it is down here, good to go. Now I got to go back into the custom connector, and I want to go in to test it to make sure that it works. So we click the pencil. We'll go fast forward to step 5 to test. Here we go. We got my key in there that you can see. And at this point, we should just be able to come down to the bottom and test and get a 200 with a response. It says, what's your favorite animal and why? Okay, and so the response here is, my favorite animal is a horse. I love horses because of their beauty. So we got a response back from ChatGPT, and we got the key that got passed in, and we didn't provide any of this in security. And because of the way that it had to be worded, we had to use a policy to kind of replace all of that. So I hope you found this video helpful. Now you know of a couple ways of how to configure and get out of this mess where you have an API key and you don't have users that are going to have their own key, and you need to make sure that either you use the shared version of it by sharing it out and or by doing this hocus pocus type based trick on the back end to override it. And the only reason that I had to use the policy was because we had some strong word or keywords that were being used for the authentication headers that were part of the security area, and that's why we needed a policy to kind of work around or work through that. But other than that, that's it. All right, guys, thanks a lot. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.